Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power of Man podcast. My name is Rory Paquette. I know you know that. I just like to remind myself, though, how fortunate, how grateful I am to be sitting in this seat and to have all of you folks out there listening the way that you are and supporting us the way that you are. Folks, when we made the move to 7 days, lots of people told me I was crazy, but not you. You folks showed up like nobody's business. You're liking, you're sharing, you're subscribing. Without you out there doing what you're doing, I don't get to sit here and do what I'm doing. So I'm eternally grateful to all of you, and you all know that, but I'm never going to stop saying it. So if you're a friend of the program, and I know you are, you know what time it is. It's time to take a sip of our preferred beverage, pay a couple bills. Here we go. Oh my goodness, man, it's even better today. Maybe it's just because my kid's getting married this week, but absolutely fantastic stuff in this cup. And you all know what we're drinking, folks. That's right. It's Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up, check them out. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful. Just like my wife. They brew a mean cup of joe. It's an absolutely fantastic cup of coffee. They do all the right things for all the right reasons. And they support our veterans, which you all know is a huge thing to us here at the Power Man Podcast. Folks, if you're a veteran or you're a family of a veteran, we love you. We thank you for your service, all of you, because we know that it's a family affair to have to deal with this and provide us with the opportunity to say the things that we want to say, do the things that we want to do, and live the way we want to live. Folks, glad that you found a home here with Power Man, and so is Freedom Hill Coffee, because they support veterans as well. At Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram, look them up, check them out. And let me go ahead and get one more sip of this preferred beverage so I can keep up with this young buck on the other side of the table from me. There we go. All right. Folks, you're going to love this. This gentleman today, father of seven. So he already qualifies for this podcast 7 different times. I mean, here we go. He's a speaker. He is the author of God's Imperfect Plan is Perfect. Can't wait to hear about that. He runs a Christ centered 12-step recovery community, which we're going to talk about today. Folks, this amazing gentleman, please welcome him to the podcast, Steve Rotermund. Steve, how are you doing today, brother?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much, Rory, for having me on. It's a honor to be here. I
Thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much for that. I
Yeah.
appreciate you. We have a ton that we can dive into. Before we do that, just go ahead and give everybody an idea. Who is Steve Roderman? What are you about? And let us know kind of what's your story, brother.
Man, Steve Rotermund was a mess, a complete mess. And uh transformed by the power of God and the grace of God and his mercy. But you know what? I've had a long this is I always say this at the beginning. The story is not better than anybody else's, and by any means, it's just the trauma that I've lived with and grew up with. And you know what? I was abandoned by a mother at the age of 4. My father was an alcoholic off and on most of my life. Told me I wouldn't amount to anything, and I wasn't good enough, and just felt like I didn't meet a standard. So um, going through life with just that right off the bat. And then at the age of 6, I was sexually molested in a construction trailer by a neighbor,
Hmm.
and was told to keep it quiet because we'd get in trouble. And well, if you knew my dad, man, I'd be in some trouble. And that really scared me. So I kept that quiet until I was in therapy, 40 something years later. Didn't tell a soul, not even my wife, and had to just live with that shame. But I'm moving on. I ended up marrying love of my life, I thought, and she ended up turning out to be addicted to prescription pain medication. And I turned to find out what codependency was. And my codependency was, when you put your codependency is basically when you put your value or worth into somebody else and forget about who you are and your needs. Man, it just turns your world upside down. So I destroyed, 3 of the kids I had at that time, and uh, just it was a complete mess. Battling that for 13 years, I battled that.
Wow.
I came to know the Lord in '91 and went forward. What's funny about this story is I was called into the ministry, and my wife, ex-wife, I should say, had ups and downs with medications and being able to stop and whatnot. But I was called into ministry, and there was a good season in there. But after a short season, she went back to it, and I just planted a church And I was wondering why, hey, I'm working for God. God, why aren't you fixing this? Why can't you fix this? Just left me with a lot of questions. And I ended up getting tired and shame. I was full of so much shame watching my wife pass out on the front row of the church
Oh, wow.
and, nodding off. And I just couldn't do it anymore. And I walked away from the church. I handed it over to another church, walked away from ministry, walked away from God. And we moved away from town. I was so shameful. And then just fought with my wife for the next 2 years and just went through a complete hell until I ended up going to a Christian counselor. Somebody talked me into that. I went there, and within 15 minutes of sitting in his office, now, mind you, I didn't know what codependency was. I never heard of the word before. And he's 15 minutes, he's like, yeah, you're part of the problem. I'm like, what?
Wow.
Yeah. I wanted to get up and leave. I was so angry. I wanted to get up and leave. And he said, you have codependency. I'm like, what? You're out of your mind. I said, I'm here. I'm paying you to be on my side to tell my wife she's wrong. We're gonna attack this together, and she's gonna get better, and I'm gonna feel awesome. And he's like, no, you're just as much of a problem as she is. You're
Oh, my
destroying your
goodness.
entire family too. I was like, wow. So I went home angry, got on the computer, looked up codependency, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I traced it back to my entire life of every relationship that I had pain and trouble and trauma in. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am codependent. And I went back. And for 6 years, I went back to him. And during that time of my transformation, he said, hey, you need to find your identity in Christ. And I'm like, I was a pastor for years. I know who Jesus is. And he's like, no, you need to find your identity. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And we went down this journey of, you know, knowing who I actually was. And he said, you had to move from the adopted feeling that your earthly father gave you, the vision. So I pictured God as my earthly father, as I pictured my earthly father. He loves me, but he kind of thinks I'm a piece of dung and he really doesn't want anything to do with me. And he's waiting for me to mess up so he can take his anger out on me. And he says, once you can move from that adopted sonship to a spiritual sonship, knowing the full inheritance of what you've received, that was life transforming for me. I mean, just transforming for me. And moving forward from that, uh, I was able to, unfortunately, I divorced my wife. I saved my kids the best that I could and fought for them and just moved on with a new life and stumbled my way for years after that, wondering if God was ever going to put me back in ministry. And then he just got a hold of me one day and told me to write the book. And this whole ministry, after a couple of years, has just transpired. And that's where we are today.
My goodness. My goodness. It's amazing the stories we tell ourselves.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
So, hi, everybody. I'm Steve.
Yes. Welcome to the show, Steve. All right, exactly. I mean, first, let me just thank you for being as open and forthcoming as you are about all
Yeah.
that. There are so many men that listen to our program that are sitting at home dealing with the same type of issue. Whenever someone like you comes on and so bravely talks about this stuff, it really emboldens them and helps empower them to say, "Hey, I'm not alone. I'm not weird. I'm not abnormal. This is something that happens." That type of thing. So it's a huge benefit to the listeners to hear someone like yourself. The I went through a very similar thing, and I found ACOAs, adult children of alcoholics. About
Hmm.
halfway through it. The part that I missed out when I was younger was on the Christian counseling part of it, and I think if I would have been able to find that, I think I would have had a much bigger leg up. Did you try both types of therapy, or did you go straight to the Christian counseling route?
I That was the first thing I stepped into was a Christian counselor. He was a therapist, but more Christian counseling we did, more biblical principles, more,
Yeah,
he'd draw stuff out, but I tried that. And then I went into secular 12-step recovery, Al-Anon, stuff like that.
right.
Um, but no, like I said, I was a man. I didn't need counseling. What are you talking about? I know what
Exactly.
I'm doing. I'm a guy. I'm tough. I've got this under control. I'll fix everything. And
Exactly.
good Christian friend said, "Man, no, you've got to go try this guy out. He's great." So thank God I did.
Sure. No, absolutely. Thank God. The term codependency. I mean, we throw it around because we just assume everybody knows exactly what it is.
Right.
You've looked into it. You've actually found out what codependency is at this point. Can you give a quick, like Reader's Digest, sort of very simplified idea of what codependency is to the guys who are listening, in case they really don't know it, they've just heard it 100 times?
Yeah, you know what? I Codependency is, there's different avenues of codependency. Mine was a savior. I wanted to fix everything.
Hmm.
But codependency in general is you're putting your value, your worth into another human being, disregarding your own needs and your own feelings. And that a real simple example is if your significant other gets up and is in a bad mood that day for some reason, maybe slept wrong, had a bad dream, or just stressed, and you're wrecked for 3 days, 4 days because of that, you've got codependency.
Right.
Instead of being a supportive husband, hey, what's wrong? But you immediately go to, what did I do wrong? It's my fault. I did something. And then you get in a fight because you're pushing and pushing and pushing to try to make it better. It ends up making it worse. And then you spend 3 or 4 days wrecked trying to rebuild that back up. And finally, when she's in a good mood again, oh my gosh, thank God, everything's smooth. Everything's good. That's codependency.
Well,
And it could be with somebody at work, it could be somebody at church. It doesn't have to be a loved one. And you don't have to have an addiction to have codependency, but a lot of those blend together because all of that is less than. I feel less than. I'm not good enough. I'll never amount to anything. Nobody loves me. That's where your love addiction part of codependency comes in. That's where the narcissism comes in with a codependent. I mean, it's just a basically just putting your worth into somebody else and saying, hey, I don't have any feelings. I'm not going to stand up for myself and say what I want. I'm going to say what pleases everybody so I can just keep the water smooth.
right. Stay under the radar. Just keep everybody
Yep.
happy if you can. Right. Exactly. It's very, very well said. That's what your pastor was saying to you when he was saying, this is, you're part of the problem.
Yes, it
He was
was.
citing you for that. So.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I know a big part of what happens when you're in a codependent situation is that we all are always focusing on, the other person, their actions, how they impact us, what we can do to help, change those actions, right? Like in your example, your spouse wakes up, she's in a bad mood. We want to do what we can to try and fix that, all of a sudden. And I think part of where we get lost is that the only thing we really can control is ourselves and what we're doing. And did you find that that's something that you were falling into a lot with your spouse? And how did you start to kind of work your way out of that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to fix it. That's the man. That's what we do.
Right.
And when you have codependency, it's times 100 million. Um, because when my wife was taking medicine, I immediately went to, not only am I going to fix it to make her better, not knowing that I was trying to make her better to make me feel better, but she's taking medicine because of me. She's escaping me. She doesn't have the power to say she doesn't like me anymore and has to take medicine. So now I've really got to fix it. So, I mean, it just
Yeah. Well,
snowballs into this. Uh, it's just a walk through hell. I mean, that's the only way I can say it is because when you're trying to fix somebody and still trying to keep everything together, you don't know how to deal with all those emotions that came with it. So I take it out on my kids. I take my anger out. I take my frustration out. I did, you know what I mean? I did not know what I was doing. I didn't even know I had it at that time. And that's where I was that part of the problem. But yes, we want to, now I'm going to try to fix myself from having codependency. And, that's what we do. We're going to fix every problem that we have. We're going to solve it.
right. So you're dealing with this. You're dealing with this issue that you now are aware of, right? Between you and your spouse, you are understanding how it's impacting your children. You're attempting to work on yourself. And somehow, in the midst of this, it comes to you that you want to write a book about, and I assume it's about all of of this, and it's sort of your story. Is that correct?
Correct. And this was later on. This all was happening around uh, 11, 12, 13.
Okay.
And I just started writing a book uh, a year and a half ago and just released it. So
Excellent.
after I separated myself from that problem, and I didn't want to go down with the ship. I wanted to get myself healthy so then I can get my kids healthy and then see where we could go with my wife.
Makes
Well,
sense.
she the whole time that this was going on, she wasn't taking medicine. I was a liar, you know. I was out of my mind, and she had everybody convinced that I was just so controlling and didn't want her to take medicine for her ailments, that she had true ailments. And, it was just, even with her family and her side of the family, I was just the bad guy. So you're just battling all this stuff, but going through the healing, it went through, man, it was, you know, 10, 11, 12 years. And then,
Sure.
wondering if God was ever going to get a hold of me again and let me get back into ministry. Because with my new wife, new family, we were going to church, and we were slowly, I was slowly making my way back with a bunch of walls up, mind you.
Right.
But then he's like, the all that trauma you went through, all that journaling, because I'm a big journaler. And, just a
Excellent.
side note, if you don't journal to get those feelings out, you really should, because God really will speak to you in journaling if you
Sure.
ask him questions. But he's like, wouldn't that make a good book? And I'm like, okay, I hate books and I hate writing, and I'm an audio guy, you know, but sure, if you want me to put a quick, 2 hour read together, I'll do that, God. And I don't think it was for me to sell books. I think it was for me to get finally healed from all that gunk.
Got it. So God's imperfect plan is perfect.
Yes.
Even the title just absolutely resounds of having a meaning, So, why that title? And then what, give us an idea what the book's about.
Because when I was a pastor, not knowing who I was in Christ, was selling a perfect plan to young children and young adults. God's got this perfect plan for you. It's perfect. And, you know, you're going to have a yellow house and a wife and a dog named Boomer, and you're going to be at the perfect job you want. And that's what God wants of you. And then what happens if you got a blue house and your wife wanted a cat and you don't have Boomer and you're working somewhere you don't want to work? It's like, my plan sucked, you know? I I can make enough choices in my life to make life hell for me. I can make bad choices that have really bad consequences. But what about all those things I didn't have a choice in? I didn't have a choice to have my mom leave me. I didn't have a choice to have my dad be an alcoholic and just put me down his whole life. I didn't have a choice to be sexually molested in a construction trailer at the age of 7 or 6. I didn't, choose to have a wife that wanted to be on pain medication, an addict for my whole marriage. And I didn't want to destroy my kids through that. Those were none of my choices. I'd say that some of the parts with the kids were, but I didn't want any of that. And God gave me a plan that sucked. He did. I just didn't like it. And in connecting all those dots through the transformation I had when I found out my identity in Christ, the biggest change for me was in John when he says, in that day you'll know that I'm in the Father's in me, and we're in you, and we're doing this life together, and we always have been. It's it just blows your mind. And I connected all those dots, and God's imperfect plan through all of that is perfect, because here I am today changing people's lives by the power of God through me, for a transformative story that is all through the Bible with hundreds of people. And that's what God's doing today, and he continues to do. So that's where that story came from.
Nice. And that's what the book is about. It talks about stories from the Bible,
No, it talks about my entire life,
your story. Got it.
the plan of my story and how it was redemptive and changed and transformed.
I
And
understand.
the plan isn't, hey, you're going to have this, 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 and this, and this. You know, God only gives you a plan for a season. You know, he told Mary, "Hey, you're gonna have a baby." Oh, thank you. That's awesome. I'm kind of, scared of this, but I'm gonna follow. Great. Oh, and by the way, you're gonna have to travel all over half the world because people are gonna try to kill that baby, and you're gonna be in some pretty bad times. He
Right.
doesn't give the whole story. So, it's just a matter of having that plan of what is the, it's simple. Be love, be light. That's his plan. I mean, it doesn't get any crisper clear in the Bible.
Yeah.
It's, I command you to love, I command you to be like my son, and I command you to be light. And that's what the plan is. He wants to be intertwined in every single part of our day. Every single part of our day. He just wants to be there and wants us to be that light and love and just show Jesus to everybody we can.
So even though it's an imperfect plan, it ends up perfect because
It's
it's going to
perfect.
happen the way it's supposed to happen for each of us.
Amen. Yes.
Love that. Love that. Incredible the way you pulled that title together. So the how long has the book been out?
It's been out since early spring.
Okay.
It's on
Excellent.
Amazon and it's on my website.
Wonderful. All right. Good deal. Now you're also a speaker. Is that what I
I am a
read?
speaker. Yes.
Okay. And you've been on some pretty large stages, it sounds like.
A few churches, and yes, I did speak at Harvard, if that's where
Harvard.
you're
Yeah, I
going.
was
Yeah.
going to say, I thought I saw a pretty big name in there.
Yeah.
Okay. And when you go around and you speak, do you speak on the book and the principles in the book, or do you speak on a different topic?
No, I speak on the principles of the book, but mostly it's stepping from the old self into the new self
I see.
and what that means through Ephesians, taking off the old and putting on the new,
Oh, great.
what that transformation really means. And,
Excellent.
we talked about you need to be love and light. You know, there's a lot of people in church that go to church and they're churchy people and they identify through ministry and as, I'm a Christian because I go to church. No, you're a Christian because you're Christ-like. And I've seen people, in a pastor role, I've seen people in church that just aren't transformed. They go to church and they serve in ministry, but they go home and they beat their wives or they, you know, I've
Yeah.
been to a big church where people are cutting people off and fingers are flying and your middle finger. I mean, it's like, are you really? You know,
At church.
so it's
Yeah.
it's talking about just, or you're mad at the waitress at, Old Country Buffet because they're so packed after church and you're mad because your order was messed up. It's like that's not being light and love. That's not being transformed. It
Right.
doesn't matter if you served at children's ministry and sang some songs and, put some flannels on the board. It's, it's being transformed fully and knowing what that is. And I think a lot of us are stuck in that sonship of adoptive, you know. Hey, I live here. I know you kind of like me, but can I get some milk from the fridge? You know, to where now my life is, hey, Father, I'm getting some milk from the fridge. Do you want some? And it's just having that bold confidence and peace and knowing what your inheritance and worth is.
I love that example.
Yeah.
That's great. They let you talk about that at Harvard, huh?
Hmm?
They
No,
let you
that
talk
was
about that at Harvard,
actually
huh?
Harvard was more on the 27 years I was in business,
Ah,
uh,
okay.
talking about that and how God leads people through business and stuff like that versus people that are totally secular and don't want God in their business. It was kind of like this study of where people were making, is God really blessing people or are people doing it themselves,
Interesting.
And it's
Okay.
more of, everything I do is for somebody else, not self-centered. So, you know, that was the
Great.
whole basic
Great
talk.
angle.
Yeah, I got
Great.
beat up.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never been to Harvard, but man, I hear about it all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, I mean, brave.
Yeah.
I called you brave at the beginning. Now I'm starting to realize, man, this guy really is brave. But you talk about your Christ-centered 12-step recovery community.
Yes.
Now, this is something that you formed, that you created, or something that you joined and you promote. Tell me about that.
It's, I still help out with Celebrate Recovery at the church I'm at now.
Okay.
And I've always, I was a director of Celebrate Recovery back when I was a pastor before. I was really big in recovery. Um, Unfortunately, it just didn't work for me and my family at the time. But It's a program I designed that, how can I explain this without hurting people's feelings? It's not to replace any kind of 12-step program.
Okay.
It's a community that I created that's 12 step, that's centered in the identity of Jesus Christ. While Celebrate Recovery is a great program and frees a lot of people, I'm not downplaying it at any means, so I don't want people to think that mine's better. It's not.
Okay.
I just know that in Celebrate Recovery, we focus on the behavior, we focus on the addiction and surrendering that addiction, knowing that there's a higher power that can free us. Okay. Mine focuses on passing through the addiction or the problem and targeting who you are on the inside, because that's going to transform of you not wanting to do the behavior. So we could stop the behavior all we want, and not that Celebrate Recovery stops on behavior, but it does focus on your behavior. I do this, I identify as a recovering. No, that's not your identity, you know, but you can stop the behavior for a little bit, but that doesn't stop anything that's on the inside because you still feel that way. And you're eventually just going to go back to that behavior. So mine is I call it a more alive 12 step, to where this is who you are. You were made before the foundation of the earth and had a relationship with God before you even started this whole thing. Adam and Eve messed that up for us and gave you that less than feeling all along the way. I reconciled all that when I my son died upon the cross and shed his blood. That's when I reconciled everything for you. Now it's your turn to live in that and accept that inheritance instead of continuing to live in this old self. So that's what that 12 step recovery is based on. Now, it's a community because I created it because, well, one, God told me to, but say you're struggling during the week and you can't wait till Thursday at 6 o'clock to get into recovery. There's a community that's there for you. Say you're a single mother and you have 3 kids and you're working 2 jobs and you can't get to a step meeting as much as you want to, but you want help. So the only way that you can recover is at 12 o'clock at night when you get all the kids to bed. You know, say you don't have one in your area or you can't get to one. It's just a community that does 12 steps. It does principles. I do devotions. I do live studies, or I will. I'm just launching this thing. Um, but I explain to people like this. I'm hosting a party and I want you all to come in. And I want the guests to have so much fun connecting with each other and helping each other out that I can go upstairs and go to bed. That's what community is about. It's about them. I'm not the star of the show. I'm not, by any means the leader of a cult or a group. It's a community that people can love on and help each other, because there's going to be people above you that gone through what you went through, and there's people below you, um, you know, or you might be below somebody that, you could just tag on to and just have a sponsor or just somebody that can love and care for you. So
That's great. I mean, it sounds like it could be incredibly valuable to people who really need it.
I'm hoping so. I mean,
Excellent.
he stepped into it before me, so I'm assuming he's gonna do something with it.
Nice. Is there a particular platform or or way that you're hosting this party?
Yeah, it's walkright.mn.co,
Okay.
and uh, it's a community that you can get to just by typing that in or going to walkrightministries.com. There's a whole page on what that community is.
Great. All right, I'm gonna go check that out. That's cool. Um, Now there's a link for folks to go check out this group. Is that right? That
Yes,
we're going to be
there's a
providing
link.
to folks?
Yep,
Okay. And that is the community is open and operating as we
it
speak.
is open, and we just launched it 2 weeks ago. So it is
Beautiful.
open, and we are promoting it now.
Right on. Okay. Well, we'll make sure we have that link in the show notes for sure. Okay. And
Great.
anybody who's looking for that, folks, just look at our show notes. You'll be able to find that without any trouble. We'll highlight it for you. I wanted to ask you about this. You talk a lot about recovery, and
Mhm.
I think anyone who has listened to 2 minutes of your story kind of has an idea of what you're working on recovering from. You mentioned something to me in the pre-interview, that recovery isn't just for, those people, so to
Right.
speak. Um, I found that to be incredibly profound when you said that. And as someone who's been through a lot of these same things, it meant something to me. I'm curious what that means to you and what that can mean to the folks at home when you say those words, that recovery isn't just for those people.
When you bring up 12 step or recovery in the community or even a Christian community, it's always like a scary, it's those are scary words to people. And they immediately go to the mindset of, oh, you mean alcoholics and people that are using drugs. And, that's unfortunate. I really have a passion to want to change that because number one, it's labeling people and that's, not loving on people like we should. It's, identifying them as somebody else. But, what about the people that are workaholics or the people, everybody has anxiety these days. What about overeating? What about pornography? What about cutting yourself? There's so many different things that the devil's using to get people off their identity and get healthy. Recovery, you know, and 12 steps really help. Well, why is that? Well, because Christ is behind it and it gets you into a relationship with Jesus Christ, which then transforms. But, getting people over that barrier, I think we said it, you got 800 people in a church and only 25 are going to celebrate recovery. We're doing something wrong.
Exactly. Exactly. No, I thought that was a great statement. I appreciate you, expounding on that for
Yeah,
everybody who's
that's
listening. Um, on this show, we focus a lot on husbands and fathers, and on men and their role in the family. As you have had a chance to learn from and look back on, what you went through with your codependent relationship and with what you went through with your wife and with your kids. I know that, in your own words, you kind of wrecked, the kids, so to speak, and you've tried to kind of, bring them back. Have you had a chance to kind of get a grip on what the kids went through um, during that time frame? I'm curious.
yes. And, one of the, I'll just start off with one of the biggest parts of me finally being able to step into this ministry was I had to forgive myself. I've forgiven everybody that's, taken them in, that's done something to me, but I haven't forgiven myself that I never fixed my ex-wife who unfortunately passed away 3 years ago.
Sorry.
And I never forgave myself for being a horrible father, which I wasn't. I just did what I knew. My oldest son um, is walking around. Thank God my two oldest boys who took the brunt of this don't use drugs or um, alcohol. But my oldest son just acts like he hates my guts. I mean, we'll talk and we just don't have a relationship. Um, but he's just carrying around so much anger he doesn't know what to do with. And my second son is just identical to me. He's attached to, this is his second relationship that he's attached to somebody that he puts all his worth into, and he's only as good as they are that day. Um, you know, those are the two things. And it's sad to watch your kids hurt and go through pain that you helped cause. And,
Sure.
I understand now it's up to them and God alone to fix their issues because otherwise, if I jump back, and this is one of the triggers that always gets me is when we have conversations and it starts to go in a way where I'm codependent again, where I'm trying to fix them and I can't. And, it's so hard, even though I've forgiven myself, it hurts that I've helped destroy my kids.
Sure.
And, it's like, God, I totally understand how you feel. You're trying to help somebody, the right way to help somebody, the perfect path to get them on, and they just don't listen. I know how you feel, but how do I do this with my kids? And he's like, love them in their mess, just like I loved you in your mess. I'm just like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all
I
I
mean,
can do is pray for them and
that's
love on
great
them. And
advice.
yeah, and show them Jesus. That's all I can do.
Right. Right. Uh, were you able to, with everything you were dealing with, were you able to raise your kids in a faith-based setting, and sort of expose them to the ministry? Or is this something that's happened more recently, as you've been
No,
healing?
we've got a 7-year old all the way up to a 28-year old.
Oh, big
So
gap. Yeah.
The first ones, uh, basically the first two are the ones that went through me being a pastor, but how can I be a pastor? And I probably totally ruined their view of God because I was a pastor loving on other people, but just a complete monster at home. And, then they see me, there's animosity there because now they see me with the younger ones. And they're like, if I would have done that, you would have killed me. And it's like, I was a different person. I didn't know love. I didn't know light. I didn't know who I was. I'm sorry, but and there's there's some anger there with that issue. But all of them, whether they believe or not, most of them do. A couple are still on the fence, but yes, when I step back into church, we raise them, and Christ is first, and others put others before you. But
Yeah.
they're kids, they're young adults. They all want to live self-centered. We all did, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate you sharing that. And I
Yeah,
apologize if, I mean, at any moment you can say, hey, pass on a question. You don't have to just answer it because I ask it. So,
you know,
but
the more you're open and honest about it and surrender that, the more healing it brings to me, but the more it can maybe help somebody listening to this program.
that's always my hope. I appreciate that very much. That's
Yeah.
always my hope. There are men who are at home who are listening to this who are going through a lot of maybe what you went through or, what I went through or something that's similar. And they are having, issues with their children and they just don't know what to do.
Right.
And we're constantly as men going through that. Hey, kids are resilient. You do the best you can with everything's my fault. I have to fix everything. How can I, make this work? And somewhere in the middle is the correct answer, but we're always suffering on the edges, in some
Right.
way. So I appreciate you, not only talking about how, you feel responsible, but you also have to give yourself some grace at some point and say,
Yeah.
hey, I did the best I could at the time with what I knew,
Right.
and now I can try and, be better. But nobody's perfect. It just doesn't work. We're all
Right.
imperfect, right?
It's the same with my father, and that's what I try to show my kids. My father and I have a great relationship. Well, why is that? Because I don't put any expectations on him. I don't put the expectation on him to tell me he's so proud of me. I don't put an expectation on him to tell me how much he loves my kids. And, he is who he is. And I love him because he's my father. And I'm here to love. And that's, the start that you have to do, even with your kids, people listening now, you want to fix something, fix yourself and get to that point to where you're not putting expectations on your kids. You're not putting expectations on your wife. You're not putting expectations on your family members or friends or coworkers that, you know, because when you put expectations on them, you're ruined,
Yeah,
you know.
for sure.
And it's real simple. If you put an expectation on your son to keep his room clean and you blow up when his room's not clean, you're only as good as he's going to be with his room, you know. There has to be a way that you can lovingly care for him without the room being the expectation,
Yeah,
you know. And you don't
conditional.
have to live like a slob either, but you know, if you just get wrecked by different things like that, you're the issue. They're not the issue. And
Yeah,
that's a
for
sign of
sure.
codependency, you know.
Right on.
Oh, well, we don't have all the shoes lined up at the door when we come inside because we don't walk in the house with our shoes on like my parents were. Well,
Right,
if you got your shoes on, guess what? You are in so much trouble. That's my issue. That's not my kid's issue,
right.
if that makes sense.
It does. It sounds like you went through an awful lot of healing with your relationship with your father, then, in terms of some forgiveness and that sort of thing.
Yeah, my dad actually has been clean for years, um,
Wonderful.
and they found God, and you know, he's still the same person. Um, and we have great conversations, and we go visit them, and there's just no awkwardness there. But again, it's because I want to say it's because I'm transformed because of that. I don't let him wreck me. I don't let them, I don't hold any of that anymore. And that's part
Excellent.
of our problem. As men, we're carrying around so many bags of just junk that we just don't know what to do. We have to let go of some of them bags for us to move forward.
For sure. For
Yeah.
sure. The I'm curious what impact writing the book had on that kind of healing, with your father, with that relationship, or did it have any impact on that?
It did. I mean, I was having a good relationship with my father before the book, but I think God used the book. Like I said, I'm not, I didn't write it to sell a million copies and be, Amazon's number one seller. I think he let me put all the pieces together of the puzzle and go, wow, you were through all of this and I wasn't any part of this. And at the, you know, I was working with a mentor with the book, and this is for anybody if you have time.
Oh yeah,
But he said, go to a place and ask God to show you where he was in your life when you didn't know him. And
nice.
I got to a point where, we were quiet, meditating and praying. And God showed me that he was standing there in the construction trailer while I was being sexually molested. It rocked my world. And it just let so much shame go. And he was like, good. He's like, now do the same thing, but when you were at one of the highest points of your life and you did not know Jesus, was he there? And he took me to my grandparents' farm. And I write about this in the book. My grandparents were the closest thing I knew to Jesus at that time. And they had this farm in rural Missouri, and that was heaven. And I describe that place as heaven. And it's probably the closest, image I have of heaven. It was just blissful. But anyway, I'm going to show my age here, but I was on a hay wagon with a stick in my hand playing air guitar, singing Motley Crue
Oh yeah, there you
at the age of 12. I have no hair now, but I did love hair bands. And
go.
Jesus was sitting on the end of that hay wagon just smiling. And I think that just summed up the entire book. It's like I've been with you the entire way. I've
Nice.
always been with you. You just weren't awoken to the fact that I was there. And he's like, now you are. Now go live this. Go do what you need to do to help others with this. So
I love the
it
way
was
the book's been such a spiritual journey for you.
yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing and much needed. Um, the book, whenever we're writing a book, I think at least nine times out of ten, there's someone that we're speaking to in our voice. Who are you writing the book to?
That 7-year-old child that was stuck in that trauma that thought he would never amount to anything. That's who I was writing to. Because when we have trauma, they say emotionally that's where we lock in and we stick
Yeah,
and we can't get beyond that. That's the child I was writing to.
you
That's
feel like
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
you feel like you got through to
Yeah.
that young man.
Yeah. I like to tell, hopefully I coined the phrase, but I have confidence and peace. And I have confidence and joy. And, it's joy's not being happy. Happy is based on a circumstance, and I'm happy some days, but I've always got joy. And I'm always, you can't wreck my day. I woke up to be loved. I didn't wake up to have anybody owe me a thing today. And I think by releasing that 7-year-old from that prison, that's where we're at.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Steve, I love it. I can actually feel the healing, like, just sitting here talking to you. I mean, it's really amazing what you've been through. Yeah.
God's working something amazing. And it's I'm not going to be a pastor anymore. I'm not called to that. But this ministry, I've never felt more powerful, more like God's just like writing when I'm writing out steps and studies and the devotions. He's just there. And I had a business, but I kind of stumbled into that business for 27 years. And I gave, and God was a part of my life. I came to know the Lord in 91. Um, was called into ministry, didn't answer it because my business took off and we were making money, and money was more important. But
There you
I still love God, said I love God. But this project here is just, man, it's just like another child of mine. So,
Wonderful.
yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, I can't wait to read the book. And I can tell how much it has helped you, and I can only imagine how much it's going to help other people who are listening right now. Jay, tell everybody how they can find the book, how they can contact you, all of those fun things.
Yeah. Like I said, the book's on Amazon. Just type under Steve Rotermund or God's Imperfect Plan is Perfect. You can visit my website, walkrightministries.com, and that's walk right as in Right. Uh, and everything about the book, everything about speaking, everything, about I coach people, help other men walk through this. That's all there on the website.
Excellent.
And if you're struggling, don't feel like, you have to pay to get some help. Just reach out and I'll try to, get your resources in your area, or just become a friend, just talk to you. But, you know, all that information's out there.
Nice. I love what you're doing. As we kind of bring this to a close, I've taken a lot of your time, and I appreciate everything you've shared with all of my listeners. Like I said, as we bring it to a close, is there anything that I didn't ask you? Is there anything that we talked about maybe you want to double down on, or is there maybe just a sort of a parting thought, piece of advice, something you want to leave for the listeners? I'm going to give you the floor for the last minute. Go ahead and wherever you want to go with that.
Yeah, number one, real quick, I'll take a
Sure.
shameless plug. Uh, Walk Right, A Path to Healing is also a podcast. It's a 13 to, maybe 20-minute devotional. I do it every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So it's not in your face, but it's enough that you can get some inspiration, hear about parts of my story, but most of all, just hear the word of God in a different way. So yeah, that's on all the platforms. YouTube, it's live or it's not live. It's recorded on YouTube, so you can actually see me if you want to see my you know wonderful figure and balding hair. But it's on audio on all the other sites. And I'll just end on this: any men you know that are struggling with this and kind of searching and wondering, go get the help. Tag into something or somebody that's gone through it in your community. It doesn't have to be me, it doesn't have to be you. It could just be anybody, because there is victory through this. I promise you, there is victory, you know, and you have to work at it. It's not, a magic pill. I'm not a gym guy, obviously, looking at me, but if you want to get strong, you have to go work out, right? Well, God's the same way, you know. You can't have a relationship with a loving person if you see him on an hour on a Sunday and maybe 15 minutes in a prayer in the morning or night. You've got to work at that relationship, because what that does is it weakens that carnal mind and it strengthens your spiritual mind, and it makes it easier to walk the path that you need to walk. So there's victory, and just go find that victory and attain it, because it's already given to you. You've already inherited it. You just don't know it yet.
Wonderful. What a great way to wrap up. I really and truly. Steve Roterman, author of God's Imperfect Plan is Perfect. Steve, thank you so much for joining us today, for everything that you brought, all of the honesty and openness, and for helping all the men that you have. Really appreciate you coming here today, brother. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. Again, it's an honor, and just I love being on your show.
Thank you so much. All right. Folks, that's been another absolutely incredible episode of the Power Man podcast. The reason we bring such powerful men on here with such powerful messages is because we are united in hoping that you find your power to become a better protector, a better provider, a better leader tomorrow than you are today, to become a better father, better husband, a better man tomorrow than you are today. And the reason that we want that for you is because you matter. You have value. And at some point, you're going to find out that you're worth it, and you just have to believe it. Until next time.